All right, so for these problems, we are going to be solving using the quadratic formula. So I'm just going to rewrite that at the top of my paper. So again, our quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So again, the a, b, and c is referring to the standard formula for a quadratic equation. So before we start solving, we have to move everything to the same side so that it's equal to 0. So for the first problem, we're going to start by subtracting 2. So we have 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 equals 0. Okay. So when I'm looking at this, 3 is a, negative 5 is b, and negative 2 is c. So I'm just going to substitute those into the formula and simplify. So we have x equals the opposite of b, so positive 5, plus and minus the square root of 5 squared, which is 25, minus 4 times a, so that's 3, times c, which is negative 2, all over 2 times a, so 2 times 3. So now we are simplifying. So we're going to start inside of our radical. So x equals 5 plus and minus the square root of 25. So I'm going to put a minus here. So I'm going to ignore the minus here, and I'm going to multiply these three numbers together. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times negative 2 is a negative 24. So that means I'm going to be subtracting a negative. So that's going to become positive 24. And then 2 times 3 is 6. So again, we just continue to simplify. So 25 plus 24 is going to be 49. So x equals 5 plus minus the square root of 49 divided by 6. And again, we keep simplifying until we can't simplify anymore. So that we can take the square root of 49. So that is going to be 7. So we have x equals 5 plus and minus 7 over 6. And because I no longer have a radical, that means I can continue to simplify. So I'm really going to split this into two problems because of that plus minus. So we have x equals 5 plus 7 divided by 6, and x equals 5 minus 7 divided by 6. Okay. So 5 plus 7 is 12. 5 minus 7 is negative 2, still over 6. And then we just reduce our fractions. So 12 divided by 6 is 2, and this reduces to a negative 1/3. So our two answers, so x equals positive 2 and negative 1/3. All right, next example. So again, same idea. So we're going to start by moving everything to the same side. So I'm going to subtract the x. So 3x squared minus x minus 4 equals 0. That means a is 3, b is negative 1, c is negative 4. And we're just substituting that information into our formula. So the opposite of negative 1 is positive 1, plus and minus. The square root of negative 1 squared is 1, minus 4 times a, so that's 3, times c, which is negative 4. And then that is all over 2 times a, so 2 times 3. Okay, so again, we are going to work on simplifying. So 1 plus minus, and then square root. Okay, so again, if I ignore the negative to start with, 4 times 3 is going to be 12 again. And then we would have 12 times negative 4, so that is negative 48. So that means that we're taking 1 minus a negative 48. So that's really the same thing as saying 1 plus 48. So that's going to give us 49. And then 2 times 3 is 6. So again, I can take the square root of 49. That's just 7. So we have x equals 1 plus or minus 7 divided by 6. And then because our radical simplified, we have two things to continue simplifying. So we have x equals 1 plus 7 over 6, and x equals 1 minus 7 divided by 6. So 1 plus 7 is 8 over 6, We can divide each of those by 2, so that will become 4/3. 1 minus 7 is negative 6 divided by 6, so that will simplify to be negative 1. So our two answers for the second problem will be negative 1 and 4/3.